Sales Talk 101, where it's all about life in the car business. Telling you like it is. Here's the man with the plan, Terry Cameron. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Car Sales Talk 101. I'm Terry Cameron. Thanks for hanging out again with me today. This is episode number 191, and we're going to call it the Big Three. But before we get started, I want to ask you to hop on over to Apple Podcast, write me a review, and give me a rating. I sure would appreciate it, and believe me, I do listen to what you say. Let's go ahead and get started. The big three I'm talking about are referrals, follow-up, and relationships. A few years ago, I was conducting a training session for a large group of salespeople, and if I remember correctly, I think it was about 65, 70 attendees from all different types of dealerships. I decided to try something new because this group consisted of green peas, established salespeople, good and bad ones, sales managers, and dealer principals. I asked them to write down on a piece of paper what training topics they'd like to discuss, and I'd pick the top subject and conduct a training focused on that topic. Out of the 65 answers I received, by a large margin, the question they asked was what I thought was the most important thing a salesperson could do to be successful. Well, this got my brain churning, and I was excited to share with them what I considered the most important task they could do, but I could not single out just one. So I decided to train on and discuss on my top three things to do to generate success. So here we go. Number one, and these are in no particular order, is referrals. Think about it. How many times have you been to a restaurant that a friend or relative recommended? How many times have you been to a movie or streamed a movie or a series on Netflix because someone told you about it? Heck, how many times have you decided to stay at a certain hotel because Google reviews were good and complete strangers recommended it? Well, the same goes for purchasing a car. People are very weary about the complete stranger that greets them when they step on the lot or walk into your showroom. But if they were referred to a particular dealership and salesperson, the sales process starts easier, and if we don't screw it up, usually ends in a sale. Being referred to you by a friend or a relative of the customer is very powerful, and the customer opens up to you and allows you to gather the information you need to help them purchase the car. Now, I'm not big on calling customers in my database just to ask them for referrals. In fact, I discourage it. I'd much rather prefer a phone call just to check in with them. Hopefully you build some rapport with them and they'll answer when you call. Whether they purchase from you or not, they will be impressed that you called to see how are they doing and how they're enjoying the vehicle they purchased, whether from you or another dealership, and to say something like, how about them Cowboys? Think about this. When was the last time a salesperson called you and didn't ask you to buy something? If you call to ask for referrals, you're making the call about you and not your customer, and the next time you call, you'll be lucky if they answer the phone. Your call is just to keep your name fresh in their mind, so when a friend or a family member mentions they're in the market, you'll be the first one that comes to mind, and you'll have a better chance of getting that referral. So how do you get referrals? I think I talked about this skill in 2 or 3 previous episodes, and let me tell you, this method works like a charm and will net you at least one referral every time you use it. Pretty much every credit application has spaces for references, and if it doesn't, just pull out a blank reference form when you're filling out the credit application. When you get to the reference section of the application, tell the customer that most of our financial institutions require 3 or 4 local references. Then ask for them. After completing the application and or your reference sheet, pause for just a second and say, do you mind if I call these folks? Not to sell them a car, but just to introduce myself to them so they have a friend in the car business that can answer any future questions they might have. You got to be careful because if you stop at, do you mind if I call them? Well, you better get ready for the just give me some cards and I'll give them to them response. Or you might just get the big fat no. The next step is to call those referrals and do just what you said you were going to do. Introduce yourself. Many times they'll ask a question about a car or financing question that often leads to an appointment, and then you just add them to your contacts and stay in touch every 90 days. Number 2 is good, consistent follow-up. Now, follow-up just means staying in touch until they buy, and then you stay in touch until they buy again. Most CRMs come with a set of standards to follow up or rules that consist of phone calls, emails, and texts set up to be completed over several days, weeks, and months. And, these are great for the come-to-work-to-wait salespeople, but the real pros schedule their own follow-ups with reasons such as holidays and special events like tax time and graduations and requests from the customer. You follow up with sold and unsold customers. Nobody else does any follow-up on unsold customers. It might be different if every salesperson in the car business who is competing with you is working with an effective follow-up system, but they aren't. If you sell professionally and stay in touch, you'll win almost every time. And remember, 8 out of 10 customers buy within the first week of stepping on the lot. So it goes to say that if you're the one that's staying in touch with the unsolds, your chances must be higher than the guy down the street hoping the customer comes back, even though they do absolutely nothing to entice them. Okay, so when we return after this break, we're going to finish up on follow-up and move on to our third major skill that's going to guarantee success. Auto dealers, do you know where your vehicles are and when they'll arrive? I know the inventory management challenge dealers face, so I'm certain the answer is a resounding no. But Montway Auto Transport can change your answer to a confident yes with the Montway Automation Portal, better known as MAP, M-A-P. MAP offers a smarter way to move and manage orders while giving you end-to-end visibility of all inbound and outbound units. You can upload VINs, get pricing, dispatch the orders, and track every unit on the dashboard. Leveraging MAP can save you time and money and get your vehicles to your lots quicker to sell. With MAP, you can book, track, and manage your inventory from one revolutionary platform. See MAP in action at www.montway.com/MAP. Now write this down, www.montway.com/MAP, and put your dealership on the map. All right, welcome back. I know salespeople that really dislike following up with our sold customers because they are afraid the customer is going to say something negative about the car that they did not notice when taking delivery. It happens, and I can understand why you would shy away from following up, especially if you knew of an issue but did not disclose it to the customer while they were at your store. Either way, it's going to get worse the longer the issue is unresolved, so jump on it as soon as it occurs and get it out of the way. Those customers will be delighted with your willingness to assist them, and happy customers will almost always refer people to you and purchase more cars down the road. Several years ago, my wife and I were in the market for a convertible sports car. For her, not me. We looked online at several different makes and models, but because of our work schedule, it was hard to settle on one and just pull the trigger. Several weeks went by and we received fewer and fewer emails and phone calls from the dealerships we reached out to. I would say it took us about 5 weeks before we made a decision, and we ended up purchasing a car from the salesperson that was consistent and stayed in touch with us. He wasn't a pest, and he talked very professionally. His emails had proper grammar and punctuation, which most others did not. Being in the business, I was actually embarrassed by the emails we received that looked like they were written by a first grader. Okay, no offense to any first graders out there that might be listening to this episode, but I'd rather work with a more intelligent salesperson. Oh, and by the way, the car we purchased was not our number one pick. So follow-up does work. I want you to think about this because a lot of us go about follow-up like it's an intrusion into our day, especially when we can be standing on the porch waiting for the up. 5 follow-up contacts a day does not take much time at all. And if we did this 5 days a week, that results in 25 contacts a week or about 100 per month. If we were consistently doing this, a couple things will happen. By the end of the first month, you'll be much better at these calls than you were when you started. Next, you'd have developed a habit which keeps you consistent. And finally, you will either sell a few more cars or at least set some customers up for future sales. 5 contacts a day takes about 30 minutes, and that's a small price to pay to eventually make thousands more each month. Like Dave Anderson of the Game Changer Life podcast says, if it's important to you, you'll make time. If it's not important to you, you'll make excuses. Last but not least is relationships. Yes, relationships. And what do I mean about that? The car business is all about the relationships we make with the folks we meet. It starts with that first impression, which only takes a few seconds or minutes to make, and as they say, first impressions last a lifetime. I believe that's not necessarily true. We can screw up a good first impression easily by doing or saying something wrong after we made that good impression. And we can turn around a bad impression by doing, saying, and acting better after we made that first mistake. We need to build good, solid, lasting relationships with our peers. They'll be there to help you with your customers when you're not available. They can help you with product knowledge, as some of our salespeople are experts on trucks and others on cars and SUVs. A good working relationship makes training and role-playing easier, not to mention helps with your attitude just when you need it the most. These relationships oftentimes result in lifelong friendships and sometimes even more. We need to build solid relationships with employees from every department. There were many times in my career that I needed the assistance from other departments, whether it's the service manager or one of his techs talking to an upset customer and reassuring them that we're taking care of the problem, or just putting them at ease by explaining what that sound is that they hear when they're going over bumps and what could be done to remedy it. I can't tell you how many times my parts manager stepped in to explain options and discuss accessories that were available and helped close a customer by offering something to them for a discounted price or even free. At least free to them, because parts managers are experts at charging free things to car deals without you knowing. What about your make-ready department? You treat them right and not as if they're below you, and you'll watch how fast your customers' cars are detailed, fueled up, and sitting in the delivery area before your customer comes out of the box. It's amazing what a thank you and a pizza every now and then can do. With a good relationship with your office staff, title and registration questions are answered without getting your head ripped off because you were bothering them. Pay plan mistakes get handled quicker, supplies are ordered promptly, and they're a great source to sell your daughter's Girl Scout cookies to. Also, these peers and fellow employees buy cars, and so do their friends and families. It goes without saying that if they like you, they'll refer folks, and they will buy from you too. Customers, and I'm talking about sold and unsold customers. What can I say about your relationship with them? If you've been in the business for any length of time, I'm sure you've met customers that will only purchase cars from one salesperson, no matter what. These customers will wait another day and even weeks while their salesperson is on vacation to buy a car or even refer someone to them. Cultivating relationships with your customers may be the single most important thing you do if you're planning on making car sales a career. These customers trade on average every 3 years, and they are very loyal to the dealership and the salesperson they purchase from, as long as you're loyal to staying in touch with them every so often. Okay, so that's it. My big 3 skills to guarantee success. Do these, and I challenge you to prove me wrong. Remember, the sky's the limit, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please rate it and write a review on Apple Podcast. We appreciate your valuable feedback. You can email Terry at 10minutesalestalk@hot.rr.com. And don't forget to share the show with a friend.